June 13th, 1944. Normandy, France, 0900 hours. Low clouds press against the hills west of Caen. The fields are wet. The air still smells of cordite from the night's shelling. In a shallow rise behind a hedge, SS-Hauptsturmführer Michael Wittmann stands half outside the turret of his Tiger I. Through the binoculars, he watches a long British column crawl toward Villers-Bocage. Cromwells, Fireflies, carriers, fuel trucks. The tanks move in tight formation, engines droning through the morning haze. He notes the distance, range, and angle almost instinctively. When he lowers the glasses, the fog lifts enough to reveal the white allied stars on their hulls. He says nothing. Inside the Tiger, 4 men wait in silence. The engine idles, the smell of diesel heavy in the air. Wittmann checks his watch. 0902. He looks down at Gunner Vol, whose hands rest on the elevation wheel. "Prepare to fire," he says quietly. The words are more habit than command. The loader, Reimers, pulls a shell from the rack, 88mm armour-piercing, tip blackened with graphite. Every movement is practiced, mechanical, flawless. Outside, the first British tank passes the intersection below. Wittmann climbs into the turret, pulls the hatch shut, and gives the order. The Maybach engine roars alive. The 57-ton Tiger lurches forward through the hedge, bursting onto the road. In the instant the enemy realises what's happened, the first shot is already fired. The Cromwell ahead explodes, its turret lifted clean off. Another tank tries to turn, exposing its side. Vol adjusts aim by instinct and fires again. A second explosion tears through the street. The column halts in confusion, engines revving, orders shouted, tracks grinding in panic. The Tiger keeps moving, steady, unhurried, the gun recoiling rhythmically like a heartbeat. Every shot is precise. The British try to scatter into the narrow lanes of Villers-Bocage, but there is nowhere to go. Shells ricochet off walls, smashing brick into dust. Trucks burn, crews dive for cover. Wittmann leans over the sight, calling targets one by one. "Left! 30 metres! Fire!" The tank shudders each time Vol pulls the trigger. The sound is physical, heavy, final. Within minutes, the main street turns into wreckage. 11 tanks, 13 carriers, 2 anti-tank guns, destroyed in less than 15 minutes. Civilians peer from doorways, faces pale in the flicker of firelight. No one speaks. The Tiger pushes deeper into town. Machine gun bursts echo off stone facades. A Firefly appears at the far end of the street, its gun already traversing. Wittmann sees it first, the slight shimmer of its barrel through smoke, and orders reverse. Stadler throws the transmission into gear. The Tiger jerks backward, just as a shell slams into the wall beside them. Dust fills the compartment. Reimers coughs, hands steady on the next round. Wittmann wipes grit from his face and shouts, "Faster!" The tank rumbles out of the main street and back toward the open road, smoke trailing behind. Then the inevitable happens. A hit near the right track. Not penetration, but enough to twist the links. The Tiger grinds to a halt. Wittmann doesn't hesitate. "Out, all of you!" The crew climbs through the hatches, stumbling into the ditch as another British shell bursts nearby. They run through the hedgerows, smoke rolling over the fields, the Tiger still burning behind them but refusing to explode. From cover, Wittmann turns once to look back. The entire town is on fire. He lowers the binoculars slowly, breath fogging in the cool air. "That's enough," he says, voice flat, almost calm. They regroup east of Villers-Bocage, lungs raw from smoke, uniforms smeared with ash. German reinforcements arrive within the hour, half-tracks, infantry, a few panzers. The British have already begun to withdraw. Overhead, the first Allied reconnaissance plane circles the town, photographing the wrecks still burning on the road. Wittmann stands beside his crew, watching it pass. To them, the sound of its engine is unfamiliar, high, distant, impersonal. By midday, the shooting stops. The silence that follows feels heavier than the battle. Wittmann writes his report by hand, seated on the grass beside a destroyed half-track. The handwriting is neat, exact. Enemy armoured column destroyed. Own losses, none. No adjectives. No mention of fire or panic. Only facts, time, and distance. When he finishes, he folds the paper, places it in his map case, and lights a cigarette. His hands are still trembling slightly from the vibration of the gun. As the sun begins to fall behind the smoke, he walks back to what's left of his Tiger. The armor is scarred, paint peeled, steel blackened by heat. He places one hand on the hull, fingers tracing the rivets. The metal is cool now, lifeless but unbroken. Behind him, the men gather quietly, waiting for orders. None come. There is nothing left to command. Wittmann looks west toward the faint red line of the horizon, the same direction the British retreated hours before. The fields are silent except for the ticking of the tank's cooling plates. For a moment, he says nothing. Then, almost to himself, "They'll come again tomorrow." The words vanish into the wind. The sky darkens over Villers-Bocage. Engines fade, smoke settles, and the battlefield returns to stillness. In that stillness lies the measure of his legend. Not triumph, not pride, only precision. He fought exactly as the machine was built to fight, perfectly, relentlessly, without pause. And when the day ended, he left behind nothing but wreckage and silence, the two true constants of mechanized war. June 14th, 1944. Normandy, France, 0620 hours. The morning after Villers-Bocage smells of wet grass and burned oil. Smoke still hangs low over the fields, and the air tastes metallic. Wittmann stands beside a parked Kugelwagen near Hill 213, his uniform stiff with soot. Behind him, mechanics swarm over a new Tiger I fresh from reserve, inspecting every joint, every weld. He watches without speaking. His previous tank lies wrecked somewhere west of town, already stripped by engineers for salvage. The number 007 will never be painted again. An adjutant from SS Panzer Regiment 101 approaches with a clipboard, salutes, and hands him a folded message. It's an order from headquarters. Report to Beauvais. He reads it once, folds it back into his pocket, and stares north, where the sound of artillery echoes like distant thunder. Reinforcements are moving, the front has shifted, and the Germans are preparing to contain the Allied push toward Caen. He steps into the new Tiger and slides into the commander's seat. The cabin smells of paint and machine oil, the controls untouched. He runs his hand along the smooth metal of the gun breech, then looks down at Vull, already seated at the sights. Neither says a word. The radio crackles, relaying coordinates from battalion command. The routine begins again. Bearings, elevation, range, all mechanical, all familiar. The machine doesn't care about reputation. By the time he reaches Beauvais that evening, the myth has already begun. Word of Villers-Bocage has spread across every regiment. A single Tiger that halted a British advance. A commander who destroyed a column alone. The story grows with every retelling. Some say it was 20 tanks, others 50. By the time the report reaches Berlin, it becomes legend. Newspapers print his name above photographs of burning wrecks. Propaganda leaflets call him Der Schwarze Ritter von Bocage, the Black Knight of Normandy. He reads the articles in silence. In the corner of the room, a correspondent from the Völkischer Beobachter waits with a camera. Wittmann refuses the staged photo. He signs his report, answers the staff officer's questions, and leaves before the interview begins. Outside, the wind carries the smell of fuel from a nearby motor pool. He lights a cigarette, exhales slowly, and says to no one, "It was one road, one morning, nothing more." In the following days, his battalion reconstitutes near Saint-Thau. Tigers arrive in 2s and 3s, patched together from spare parts. The crews look at him differently now, a mixture of admiration and superstition. When he passes, they straighten unconsciously. He avoids their eyes. The men talk about him as if he belongs to history already, not to them. Even the officers treat him like a symbol. His name appears in daily briefings beside tallies of destroyed vehicles, like a weapon designation. At night, he writes short notes in his field diary. Not reflections, only data. Fuel 480. L. Track tension normal. Weather clear. No mention of the battle. No mention of loss. The pen moves with mechanical precision. The Allied air raids begin again on June 20th. The roar of Spitfires and Typhoons fills the sky from dawn to dusk. The Tigers hide beneath camouflage nets, engines idling. Wittmann sits in his turret, listening to the bombs fall in the distance. The earth trembles. Dust drifts down from the ceiling of the barn where they've taken cover. He closes his eyes for a moment. Every sound feels identical to the last. The crash of impact, the pause, the echo. When the noise stops, he climbs out, checks the horizon and gives the same order he gave before every engagement. Engines ready, no rush. The phrase has become ritual, a way to control the rhythm of fear. That night, under a flickering lantern, his gunner Vull sketches a rough map of Villers-Bocage on a scrap of paper. He traces the route they took, the positions of the British tanks, the narrow turn where the track was hit. "You remember this corner?" he asks. Wittmann nods once. "We should have turned sooner," he says quietly. Vull folds the map and burns it with his match. Neither man speaks again. By the end of June, the division is exhausted. Supply convoys are late, fuel arrives in barrels scavenged from civilian depots. The men grow thin, their uniforms grey with dust. Yet every day someone from Berlin calls for updates. How many tanks destroyed? How many kilometres held? Headquarters wants proof that the legend still breathes. Wittmann gives them numbers, nothing else. He knows that Villers-Bocage was not victory, only delay. The Allies are moving faster than reports admit. Every hour brings more aircraft, more armour, more precision. The front is folding, but no one says it aloud. When he finally lies down that night, the noise of engines still hums in his ears. It's the sound he knows best, the sound that replaced thought long ago. He closes his eyes and sees the narrow road, the burning column, the white star painted on the tank he destroyed first. He wonders, briefly, if the man inside saw him before he fired. Then he opens his eyes again. There is no point in wondering. At 05 o'clock the next morning, he's back in the turret, headphones on, coordinates marked. The sky is pale, the fields wet. Another day, another set of targets. He looks once toward the east where the sun breaks through the fog and says quietly, "One more road." The engine starts. The sound erases everything. August 8th, 1944, south of Caen, 07:10 hours. The morning begins with ground mist and the steady hum of engines warming across a field near Sintio. Wittmann leans over the map spread across the Tiger's glasses plate, a compass resting on his thumb. The ink has already bled from the damp. To the west lies Gomenil, and beyond that the village of Saint-Agnan-de-Cremenil, a thin line of stone houses straddling the main highway. Somewhere along that road the British 1st Northamptonshire Yeomanry waits with Shermans and Fireflies in ambush. He folds the map, taps it once with the edge of his hand, and climbs into the turret. The radio operator, Sower, tunes through static until the voice of the battalion commander breaks through. Kampfgruppe Wünsche advancing, cover right flank. Wittmann acknowledges, clicks the handset once, and replaces it. The routine is exact, unhurried. He glances down at Vull, already setting range 0. The loader checks the breech, wipes a smear of oil from his sleeve. Outside, the fog thickens, swallowing the sound of the idling engines until only vibration remains. At 07:17 the order comes. The Tigers roll forward through the mist, iron tracks crushing the wet soil. The smell of exhaust fills the air, visibility barely 30 metres. Wittmann keeps the hatch half open, the cold air stinging his face. Through the haze, shapes emerge, low barns, the dark edge of an orchard, the distant glint of glass. The convoy moves in single file along the road to Saint-Agnan. To his left, another Tiger keeps formation, turret turned slightly outward. At 07:30 the mist lifts just enough to reveal open fields ahead, and motion on the ridge. The first Firefly fires. The flash is distant, almost beautiful, before the shell slams into the lead Tiger's hull. It bursts into flame without warning. Wittmann snaps the periscope around, sees the black plume rising. "Enemy left ridge, 800 metres," he shouts. Vull traverses the gun, sighting through the smoke. The second shot lands close, throwing dirt across the Tiger's front plate. He orders forward. Stadler throttles up. The tank lunges ahead, grinding through the ditch toward cover. The next impact hits the ground just short of them, showering the turret with mud and fragments. Vull fires back, one round, then another, the recoil thundering through the compartment. Through the sight, nothing but flashes and haze. A British tank burns on the ridge, but others keep firing. For a few seconds, it's all rhythm again. Load, aim, fire, correct. The kind of sequence that had once made him untouchable. But now the air feels different, heavier, thinner, as if the sky itself has turned against them. The radio bursts with overlapping calls, coordinates, half-words. One voice says his name, then cuts out. At 0741, the Tiger crests a shallow rise near Gomenil. The fields open wide on both sides, too wide. There is no cover, no hedgerow, only wheat and smoke. Wittmann knows it instantly. It's a kill zone. He leans out of the hatch, scanning the horizon. To the north, a flicker of movement, a firefly repositioning. The muzzle flash is small, a pulse of light in the grey. The round hits. The impact is instant, a white burst against the turret ring. The sound less like an explosion and more like metal tearing. Inside, everything compresses into a single pressure wave. For an instant, Wittmann sees nothing but light. The Tiger jerks sideways, stops, engine roaring once before dying. The radio goes silent. Flames bloom through the engine deck. The air fills with smoke and burning paint. The crew doesn't have time to react. The fire moves faster than thought. One man reaches for the hatch, another for the extinguisher. It's useless. The explosion comes without warning. A column of black smoke rises above the field, visible for miles. By Air 800, the battlefield is quiet again. The wheat burns in a slow circle around the wreck, the flames low and steady. In the distance, the sound of British engines grows louder. Shermans moving forward to secure the ground. They stop when they see the Tiger, its turret blown open. The number still visible through soot. 007. The crews stare for a moment, engines idling. The air filled with the faint ticking of cooling metal. None of them speak. The name is already known. Later, when the smoke clears, engineers will find fragments of the commander's insignia among the wreckage, melted into the steel. The report will list it plainly. One Tiger destroyed near Gomenil. Crew presumed KIA. No ceremony, no announcement, just another line in the endless arithmetic of war. The column moves on. The sky closes over the field. The sound of engines fades into a distance. What remains is silence. Perfect, absolute. The same silence that followed every victory, now permanent. Michael Wittmann's war ends exactly as he fought it. Inside the machine, surrounded by precision, consumed by fire, leaving only order behind. August 8th, 1944, Gomenil, Normandy, 12:40 hours. The smoke has thinned, but the smell still clings to the air. Oil, burned paint, and wet earth. British infantry move slowly through the wheat, rifles low, eyes on the black shape ahead. The Tiger lies half buried in its own crater, turret split open along the welds, armour plates warped by heat. The number 007 is still visible beneath the soot. The grass around it is flattened, scorched in a perfect circle. Nothing moves inside. A corporal from the Northamptonshire Yeomanry climbs onto the hull. The steel is warm, almost soft to the touch. He looks down through the hatch, then back toward his officer. No survivors. His voice is flat, almost routine. The officer nods, signals to mark the wreck for salvage, and moves on. The column continues north towards Cinthio, leaving the tank behind like a monument without a name. By afternoon, the wind picks up. The wheat bends and whispers around the crater. The smoke disperses into thin threads that drift across the open fields. A pair of crows circle above, then settle on the barrel, pecking at nothing. From the highway, the Tiger looks whole again, just another wreck among hundreds, another carcass of war cooling in the sun. At 1600 hours, an Allied photographer arrives with a jeep and a single camera. He circles the tank once, measuring the light. He takes 3 photographs, front, side, turret. The shutter clicks sharply in the still air. Each frame captures the same thing, a burned-out shell against the flat horizon, a field without movement, the war reduced to shape and contrast. He writes the location on a note card. Gomenil, German Tiger, probable Wittmann. Then he leaves. That evening the sky clears, the sound of engines fades until only insects remain. The last British units pull back to regroup for the night. The field is empty again, silent except for the crackling of cooling metal. Flames still flicker under the engine deck, small, stubborn pockets of heat that refuse to die. By midnight the fire is gone. The wreck sits under a pale moon, black against silver grass. Steam rises from the soil, condensing on the torn armour. The silence is complete, heavy, almost physical. Days pass. Rain comes, washing soot into the ground. Mud fills the craters, the wheat lies flattened in wide arcs around the tank. The dead are buried nearby in shallow graves, marked with thin wooden crosses. No names, only numbers and dates. The tiger remains. When French farmers return weeks later, they work around it. The wreck becomes part of the landscape, a landmark, a direction, a story to point toward. Children walk out to see it, touching the cold metal, whispering that the man inside once destroyed an entire army with one tank. They don't know his name, only that he died quickly. Months turn to years. The field grows back. Grass covers the tracks. Rust blooms over the hull. The steel softens under the rain, edges turning to dust. By the 1950s, only half the tank is visible above ground. Farmers plough near it, but never through it. The crater stays untouched. In 1945, Allied intelligence writes the final line. Confirmed KIA. SS-Hauptsturmführer Michael Wittmann, 8th of August 1944, near Gomenil. The sentence fits on one page. No medals, no speeches, just coordinates. But the legend survives. Officers who fought that day remember his ambush at Villers-Bocage, the precision, the speed. They tell it to recruits as a study in tactics, never as propaganda, only as mechanics. How one man, 5 crew and 57 tons of steel could stop a column 10 times larger. Historians argue about who fired the fatal shot. Some say it was the British Firefly from D Squadron. Others claim it was a Canadian Sherman hidden behind the ridge. The debate lasts decades. The result never changes. The field is still there. Normandy, present day. The road remains repaved and quiet. Wheat grows thick and golden over the old battlefield. At the edge of the field near Gomenil, a small marker stands, grey granite, unadorned except for the engraved words. Michael Wittmann, 1914 to 1944, SS-Hauptsturmführer, fallen in combat near this place. No flowers, no flag, only silence. The wind moves across the open plain, the same direction it carried the smoke on that morning. Cars pass now and then, their sound rising and fading like distant engines. From above, the land looks smooth again, healed but not forgotten. Under the soil, pieces of the tiger still remain, fragments of track, a bent periscope frame, shards of armour fused by heat. The rest was taken long ago for scrap, melted down into bridges, machines, and new wars. If there is any trace of him left, it isn't in the legend or the records. It's in the way the fields still flatten under wind the same way they did when he passed. Straight lines, perfect rows, mechanical precision carved into nature itself. The story ends where it began, with a road, a machine, and silence. Everything else was noise. August 9th, 1944, Normandy, France. Dawn. The sky's pale and clean after the storm. Thin mist curls along the edges of the highway south of Caen. The ground is still warm from yesterday's fires, and the air smells faintly of iron. German columns move north in silence, trucks, half-tracks, and the last remaining tigers of SS Panzer Regiment 101. None of the crews speak. They all know what lies ahead on the road. As they approach Gomenil, the wreck appears through the fog, black, skeletal, half sunken in the earth. The armour still smokes faintly. The number 007 catches the morning light. Drivers slow instinctively. Men crane their necks to look. No one stops, but the column falters for a moment, each man seeing the same thing and thinking the same unspoken thought. That was him. The first tiger passes on the left, treads grinding over the soft shoulder. Inside, the gunner whispers, "Wittmann's machine." The commander says nothing, only keeps his eyes forward. The next vehicle does the same, and then another, until the entire column has gone past. The sound of the engines drowns out everything, until it fades again, leaving only the ticking of cooling metal and the low wind moving through the wheat. By midday the field is empty once more. The sun burns away the mist, revealing the full shape of the wreck. The turret lies twisted at an angle, the barrel buried in soil. Around it, small fragments glint in the light, pieces of track, shards of glass, melted brass. Flies gather over the blackened steel, drawn by the heat. The wreck smells of smoke and old grease. A group of infantry stragglers arrives on foot, Remnants from another unit retreating toward Falaise. They stop at the crater, drop their packs and stand in silence. One man traces the number on the hull with his finger. He stopped them at Bocage, he says quietly. Another nods. He stopped everything, someone answers. They stay a few minutes longer, then move on, leaving the field exactly as they found it. In the days that follow, the wreck becomes a landmark. Every retreating convoy passes it. Some salute, some spit, others just look. No one speaks his name aloud. It belongs to history now, not to men still fighting. The Tiger stands like a burned monument to both victory and futility, proof that precision, even perfect precision, cannot stop the tide. By the end of the week, the Allied push has broken through. The German front collapses south toward the Falaise pocket. Columns scatter, units disintegrate. Messages from headquarters grow shorter. Coordinates, retreat orders, silence. No one mentions the tank at Gomesnil again, but the crews remember. In every battalion someone repeats the story, the road, the ambush, the impossible numbers. The myth keeps them steady when everything else falls apart. They start calling every successful shot a Wittmann shot. They don't know if he'd approve, and it doesn't matter. The name becomes code for survival, for doing the job correctly, even when the rest of the war has stopped making sense. September arrives. The wheat is gone, trampled flat by tanks and rain. The Tiger has begun to rust. The edges are red, the turret sunken deeper into the soil. Crows roost on the barrel at dusk. The sound of artillery is now far to the east. For the first time in years, this part of Normandy is quiet. At night, villagers hear the wind moving through the burned wrecks and say it sounds like engines idling. Sometimes it does. The field becomes a border between memory and silence, a place where order ended and the war simply dissolved. The wreck doesn't decay fast. It resists weather the way its commander resisted chaos. Winter comes early. Frost settles inside the open hatches, coating the steel in white. The number 007 is still visible under ice. By December, the field is covered in snow. The Tiger lies beneath it, silent, whole, invisible. Months later, a patrol from a British engineering corps marks the wreck on their map. They record coordinates, take a final photograph, and classify it for removal. But the order never comes. By the time spring arrives, there are too many other wrecks, too many roads to clear. The Tiger remains, half forgotten, half sacred. For the soldiers who pass by in the following weeks, it is no longer a weapon. It is a warning that even perfection burns. When the war finally ends, the fields return to life. The farmers plough again. Grass grows over the tracks, rain fills the crater. The air smells of soil instead of smoke. Children find bits of metal in the dirt and carry them home like relics. None of them know the name Wittmann. They only call it the tank. And still, when the wind moves across the plain in early morning, it sounds faintly like a Maybach engine turning over. Slow, low, even. The rhythm is the same one that carried his crew through Villers-Bocage, the same sound that defined his life. It isn't haunting. It isn't memory. It's just the machine echoing itself, refusing to vanish completely. The Tiger remains buried beneath the field, a shape under grass, a line on an old map. Its silence outlives the war, outlives the men, outlives the story. And that silence, precise, disciplined, endless, is the only monument he ever needed. Winter 1944, Normandy. Snow drifts across the open fields of Gomesnil, covering everything that once screamed with fire. The wrecks are muted now, soft shapes under white, their violence erased by weather. The Tiger lies buried halfway in frost, turret canted toward the horizon as if still searching for a target. The metal breathes quietly beneath layers of ice. The air is still. British engineers patrol the road at noon, boots crunching in rhythm. They note the wreck's position again, same coordinates, same lumber, nothing changed. One of them scratches at the ice with his bayonet, revealing grey steel beneath. "It's him, isn't it?" the corporal asks. The officer doesn't answer. He marks the point on the map, folds it, and moves on. The line of men disappears into fog. Behind them, the field returns to silence. No one lifts the Tiger that winter. No one dares. It sits like a sealed vault, a remnant of order buried inside chaos. When the wind picks up, it hums faintly through the barrel, the same pitch the engine once made when idling before battle. Spring 1945. The war nears its end. The sky over Normandy is empty again. No contrails, no bombers, only crows. The grass begins to rise around the crater, bright green against the rusted hulls. Farmers return, ploughing close but never over it. Some believe the ground still carries heat, others simply leave it untouched out of respect or fear. By summer, the Tiger's outline has blended into the landscape. From a distance, it looks like a low hill, a curve of soil rising from the wheat. Only the barrel remains visible, a thin black line pointing west toward the direction of every retreat. Children play near it. They climb the barrel and slide down the side, their laughter echoing in a place where once only engines spoke. When their parents call them home, they glance back at the wreck and whisper to each other that a ghost still drives it at night. They're not wrong. The ghost is mechanical, the echo of movement, the memory of precision. 1946. A German recovery team arrives, weeks too late, uniformed in grey without insignia. They work quietly, under the supervision of British engineers, no ceremony. They lift what remains of the Tiger's upper hull, remove the burned components and load them onto a flatbed truck. The operation lasts 2 hours. The crater is left open. When they finish, the officer in charge walks the perimeter one last time. He kneels, brushes snow from a piece of track, and places it upright in the dirt. A marker, nothing more. The wind flattens his coat against his legs as he straightens. "He was a soldier," he says simply, and steps away. That's all the eulogy there ever is. The rest of Wittmann's life exists only in numbers. 141 confirmed kills, 25 destroyed in one day. Death, August 8, 1944. Statistics without breath. Perfect symmetry for a man who measured everything in distances, seconds, and angle of elevation. His name circulates among veterans like a formula. Proof of what a single crew could achieve when training met instinct. It is never spoken proudly, only precisely. His own commanders refer to him as an example of professional mastery under impossible conditions. Historians, decades later, will call him a symbol, but they will misunderstand. He never sought symbols. He sought control in a world that had none. Years pass. The crater fills with rain, then grass. The field returns to wheat. Nothing remains of the tank except a few melted bolts and the impression it left in the soil. A perfect circle, 1 meter deep, 9 meters wide. The geometry of an ending. The French call it le champ du silence, the field of silence. They avoid it during harvest. The soil there grows taller, darker, denser. At dawn, when the mist rolls low across the valley, the outline of the old tank seems to reappear for a moment, black against the pale grass, pointing west. The illusion fades as the sun rises. The sound fades with it. Wittmann never left that place. Not his body, not his presence. The man and the machine were inseparable. Two halves of the same principle. Precision without mercy, discipline without noise. The war gave him a shape, then took it back in the same instant. The Tiger's silence became his legacy, a silence not of defeat, but of completion, because perfection has no aftermath. In the end, Michael Wittmann became what every soldier fears and every engineer understands, a part of the system, functioning until the moment it stopped, and then preserved exactly as it was. The field holds him still. The wind still follows the old road, and the machine, even in ruin, continues to echo.